Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
That's if I can get my screen to pick up.
I can't help you.
Yeah, every once in a while this happens and you can't. Can you see my, okay, can you see it now?
There, yes.
Okay, all right, let me go into,
Ooh, that's pretty.
okay, so you're not
Okay.
seeing the thumbnails, you're seeing the whole screen, correct?
Thumbnails at the bottom, but
Okay,
big,
let me,
big picture. Oops, gone. Where'd it
I
go?
know, there was a reason for that because, oh boy, here we go. Can you see my screen now?
No.
Can you see it now?
No.
You still can't?
No.
Okay, now you should be able to.
Yes. I see. Yes.
Okay. I have two screens and I have a very big screen. I keep forgetting to unplug it when I want to do this. Okay, so now
Ooh,
you should be able
there.
to see just the
Perfect.
globe. Okay, that's
All
good.
right.
So this, of course, is the Earth, and
Mhm.
this is what it looked like before we started melting. We're now melting. This is the Climate Reality Leadership Corps, and this was the 46th training in the United States version,
Mhm.
which was just this spring. So there are a lot of new material in here. It's been updated. Of course, this is the standard, the marble. It's the last man, man photo, last picture that a man took without machinery. Um, we're going to talk now about the heating of the earth. And of course, everybody at this point should know that fossil fuel, the burning of fossil fuels is really the big problem and it's creating a lot of CO2. The concentration of the CO2 increases, more of the outgoing infrared radiation is trapped. So what's happening is because of the CO2 staying in our stratosphere, it's not allowing radiation to release. So that is causing the heating of the earth. And this is a picture of our stratosphere. And this is a very thin shell that's protecting us. And this is where all the CO2 is being trapped. So if you were driving highway mileage in a car going straight up, you would hit the end of the atmosphere in 5 minutes. That's how small it is. And basically, it's acting as a sewer for CO2, which is causing a tremendous amount of warming of the earth, which in the last 20 years, the increase has been tremendous, and the most of it has been in the last 7. It is just now so much CO2 trapped and so much heat trapped, and the ice is melting and the waters are warming. It is just causing these problems. So last September in Los Angeles, it was the highest all-time heat record of 121 degrees. And the hottest overnight low was 108.7 degrees for 51 hours in the Middle East. One of the biggest problems is that the heat that's being trapped is being trapped inside the water. So 93% of the extra heat trapped by man-made global warming pollution goes into the ocean. And unlike Vegas, what goes in the ocean does not stay in the ocean. It's actually coming out in all these other weather-related problems. So the global ocean heat content has changed so much, and you can see how much it's changed since 1960. Half of this increase has occurred in the last 20 years. And this is the Gulf of Mexico and the path of Harvey. One of the reasons why we use this so much is because Harvey crossed the waters in the Gulf when they were 7 degrees higher than normal, and the heat had gone 200 meters deep. Normally, when a hurricane comes across warm water, it slows down when it becomes shallow because it's pulling up the cold water from below in the depth, and that helps slow down the engine, but it's not happening anymore. And what's happening is because your temperature is getting so much warmer. I mean, take a look at what's happening right now in the Gulf. I mean, it's 90 something degrees already. It's just June. I mean, this is just fuel, tremendous fuel for these storms. So last year, in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean, they had 2 tropical storms pop at the same time. You had Marco and Laura, and they called them rare tandem storms because they were so close together, and they caused a lot of destruction in the Northern Caribbean before reaching the US coastline. Laura, they're saying it's the strongest recorded hurricane ever to strike Louisiana. That's not true. Katrina was a Category 5. But the
Yeah.
reason why they're saying it's the strongest is because it jumped from a Category 1 to a Category 4 in one day. And that's unheard of. And why? Because of the warmth of the water. And also because the water is so warm around the earth all over, it is changing our jet streams. Has a lot to do with the evaporation of the water, is also an engine for the jet streams, and they are changing. So all of this is taking a big effect on our normal climate. So before Delta arrived, Lake Charles, Louisiana, you can see the damage that happened. And then the second floor, this is the third, I think, Hurricane Delta, which was a tropical depression. It jumped from a tropical depression to a Category 4 in 36 hours, again, because of the heat. And then, of course, look at Lake Charles. Now, almost every house has got blue tarps on it because it made a landfall in the same area. And that's not unusual because, again, the jet stream, it can break and hold, and there's no steering wind to move these storms out of the way. They either tend to take the same path because nothing has changed, or they tend to sit and spin and cause a tremendous amount of damage. And then this was the third one, which was Hurricane Sally. And this hit you guys, I think.
Right.
Sally was the 8th named storm to make landfall last year. And Pensacola received 30 inches of rain in 4 hours. They called it a rain bomb because there was so much water that came down in such a short period of time. So Desmond Tutu had made the statement back in 2019 that climate change is the apartheid of our times. And the Poor People's Campaign is calling it an ecological devastation. And the reason being, and this would be a completely different presentation, is how these changes are affecting the poor. Hold. Storms are getting stronger is not only the wind speeds that are picked up by and are accelerated by the warmer oceans, but the warmer oceans fuel more moisture into the air. And warmer air holds a lot more water vapor. For every 1 degree increase in temperature, the holding capacity of the atmosphere for water vapor increases by 7%. We already have gotten to 5% more water vapor over the oceans than we had 30 years ago.
Wow.
as temperatures increase, the ocean evaporates more moisture into the sky. And this is really what is devastating. This one statement is really the cause of a lot of problems that we are having right now. The change of the weather patterns, where you're getting droughts where there weren't droughts before, and you're getting floods where it was temperate before. So this is showing an evaporation, and what you're seeing here is it's a river. It's an atmospheric river from Hawaii to California. You can see that one looks like one big long cloud. That is a tremendous amount of water that is evaporated into the sky. And water, goes up, it's got to come down. And it came down on this particular day in San Jose.
Jesus.
So already the average atmospheric river carries as much water as 25 Mississippi rivers.
Wow.
So the downpours get bigger. And this is a supercell in Montana, in Wichita, Kansas.
God. Oh,
This is Tucson, and you can see the water come down. That's a rain bomb.
holy crap.
And that's pretty much what hit Pensacola.
Oh my God.
And it's happening more and more. They've had one in the Northeast, and they're getting them in Canada. There have been 21 in 1,000 year downpour events in the US since May of 2010. And this is Phoenix. What you just saw, this is like a still picture of it. So you can see this rain bomb. Extreme rainfall events are 4 times more often. This is just this past March. This was in Nashville. It was simply rain. Global record-breaking precipitation anomalies are growing very quickly. This is Alta, Norway. It's actually, I think, north of the Arctic Circle. It's on the Norway's northern coast. And this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because there's thousands of prehistoric rock carvings in this place. It's also well known for the Northern Lights. But after a particularly rainy day,
No way.
so this thing, the houses went out, then they started sinking and they started flowing back on water. You can see it in the lower right.
Oh my God.
Yep, they lost the entire peninsula.
Holy shit.
This was last June, a year ago. There's many reasons for that. But one of the biggest reasons is because it's north of the Arctic Circle and it's melting up there. And then they got a lot of precipitation because instead of getting snow, they're now getting rain. Judy Riley is coming in. And so with the permafrost is defrosting, then you have no snow, you have water. I mean, after all, ice keeps water in a solid state. And when it melts, this is the result of it. So they're having, and this is not the only place this has happened. The same extreme heat that evaporates the water from the ocean is causing bigger downpours and floods, is also pulling moisture more quickly from the soil, causing longer and deeper droughts. And that's what we're seeing in the United States. We're seeing it worldwide, but I think it's easier to see locally in our own country what's happening now. So this is New Mexico, and this is February, and it is just bone dry. This is just bone dry. They're predicting this is NOAA's predicting a prolonged and widespread drought and a warmer and drier than normal spring for much of the country. Well, we already know what's happening in California. If you go back and you take a look at this map on the lower right-hand corner from June 2006, you can start to see how the heat is changing. The cycles are changing. Like 3 years between 2006 and 2009, and then from 2009 to 2012, you can see the extreme heat. Then you go another 3 years to 2015, and you can see that the Southwest is just burning up. 2018 and then 2021. They are already having fires in California and out west, and this is early in the season for them. It usually doesn't happen until the fall, till the end of August, September. So along with this, you have extreme drought and you lack of fresh water. There's no, their aquifers are going dry. There's no groundwater left. It's really a mess. So since 1970, you can see how things have gotten hotter. And for where I live, it's gone up 3 degrees. I'm in Citrus County now. Where you are, I think it's around 2.5 degrees. Now you're north, okay? And I can tell you that the warmth, the temperatures are moving from the south and going north. And also your tornadoes, that whole line, that tornado belt is starting to move from Midwest. It's starting to move east. There's a huge change in our weather patterns. Wildfires, of course, have accounted for up to 25% of basically air particle pollution in the United States, and up to half in some Western regions. It's because of the fires. And this is a child suffering from wild smoke inhalation. This is in Brazil, because Brazil is going through the same thing. The rainforest is burning. That's really bad when it comes to climate, because that rainforest is supposed to be a cooling device for the world.
Right.
That's also another reason why asthma has become more predominant. And I now have just been diagnosed with asthma, and my trigger is particulates in the air. These are fires that were detected between July and August 2019 around the world. They're in Alaska, they're in Canada.
Alaska.
Yeah, you see it? Yep.
Yeah.
You see the Arctic Ocean? It's all up in the Arctic in Russia, Siberia, Norway.
Good.
Yes, and then the further south you go, if you see the top of the screen, that's Europe. Europe was burning in 2019. They're still having a lot of problems in the summer. This increase is up to 350% in fires. And our problem with water loss, which is another presentation altogether, because I'm like big on losing our water. But you can see Florida and all around the Gulf. You would think we wouldn't have a problem with losing water. We're having a tremendous problem with losing fresh water. Let's talk water. It's one of my favorite things. I love this.
Climate change is often a big abstract problem, and we need to make it local. And there's no climate impact that can be more localized than sea level rise.
Miami.
What's happening in the polar regions will impact everyone on the coastline. What humans do in the coming decades will impact the planet for centuries.
So let's talk about water. 97.5% of the Earth's water is salt water. Only 2.5% is fresh water. And that 2.5% is broken up by like 0.3% for lakes and rivers, 30.6% for groundwater, including soil moisture, swamp water, and permafrost. And 68.9% of that 2.5% is glaciers and permanent snow cover. The groundwater, we're losing it. We're doing it because of evaporation and salination. All right. Soil moisture, you see what's happening in the West and the, in the South and Central America. because of the heat, because of the shifting of the climate, where it's raining where we don't need rain and it's not raining where we need it. There is no soil moisture. It's being sucked right out of the ground from the heat. And the permafrost is actually burning. It is melting. And then there are fires that are starting, and they smolder during the winter and then they just reignite in the summer. So we're losing all of that. And we know glaciers are melting into the salt water. So this is a really big problem. We are losing our fresh water. But remember, we're selling it to Nestle. This is one of the biggest problems with sea level rise. Not only is the height of the water, it's getting higher, but that means that your waves are getting bigger and stronger, and they're moving inland at a tremendous rate during storms. And then they're just creeping up because of sea level rise. You have a high tide and all of a sudden the streets are flooded. No rain. And this is starting to really cause problems along the coastline. So I do think you have some of this going on up in your area. And they're called ghost forests. And these are standing dead trees with exposed roots. We see it here when we go to the beach because we have to go through the wetlands. And you can see, because of salination, the trees are killed by the salt water, and it's due to the sea level rise. The thing is that the water levels are increasing very quickly. And that is just straight out killing these trees that can't make a change to be able to absorb salt water. They do know, they just did a survey in South Carolina along the coastline, and they've lost 11% of their healthy forest to ghost forests. Now, the big problem with this is those roots, when they're in the ground, hold the soil together. When you get a ghost forest and the roots are dead and the trees are dead, you have erosion. And so now your salt water is moving even further inland. This is another picture of what a ghost forest looks like. You're going to love this. The most hurricane prone areas in Florida is Northwest Florida. You're the bullseye for hurricanes, okay? Surprisingly enough, or maybe not surprising at all to some people, is that Northwest Florida, situated on the Panhandle, is the most hurricane prone area in Florida. It's particularly due to the Gulf of Mexico, which is known for its warm, shallow waters, and partially due to its location in the US. Making it really simple, okay? Sharks move from south of the Gulf, they go north, and they run right into Pensacola, okay? Sharks move right up. That's the pattern of the way the water flows. And so your atmosphere flows along the water flows, like the Gulf Stream and things like that. So all of the storms, when they get to a certain point in the Gulf, tend to go north. And you're like the wall at the end of the line. Have no other way to, bullseye, situated outside of the common tropical zone. Well, out of South and Central Florida. Here's another problem. When I moved to Pinellas 23 years ago, we were subtropical. When we moved 18 months ago from Pinellas to Citrus, it had become tropical in Pinellas. I was getting plants that were growing in my yard that I guess the birds were dropping seeds, and all of a sudden I had tropical plants that I didn't know even existed in Florida. Okay. I had these gigantic philodendrons that I used to see when I went to Brazil. The leaves are 6 feet across. Well, they were growing in just outside of my property in the trees. Why? Because everything is moving north. The heat is moving north. The deserts are moving north. So you're going to see your area starting to warm up as well. All right. And because of that, there's really nothing stopping these storms from moving up. It's just the heat in the water and the atmosphere. The Northwest Florida Panhandle is so prone to hurricanes that it has surpassed every other state as a whole, as Texas is the second most hurricane-prone state in the United States with 64 hurricanes. So this A, B, and C is showing if we had not like a low change in water in, let's say, till 2100, you can see that the water line, which is all the way to the right on A, this is a low change in water level, is coming up just to the seagrass. All right. If it's an intermediate type of change, so now it's going up to maybe 30 inches by 2100, the water has now passed the seagrass and it's hitting the mangroves. And then the largest change, that this means that we do nothing to control the CO2 whatsoever, and it's a full-blown heat. This is what's going to happen. You're going to lose your sand dunes. You're going to lose your seagrass. Your mangroves are like cut in half, and you've got a rock barrier put in to try to stop the water from getting into properties. This is the change and the extent of glacier ice from 20,000 years ago. So the black line is the location of the coastline 20,000 years ago. You can see the current location. The red is what they predict if it's uncontrolled climate
Oh, oh my God.
okay? And again, this was what it would look like on the map. So you would lose all of South Florida. Tampa's underwater. Forget it. You guys are going to get hit really bad on your side. I'll show you how it shows up. Just remember, where it's blue, that's underwater permanently. But then your new coastline is going to be ravaged by the increased water and storms because they're going to be vicious. They're going to be bad. So this is very interesting. You can do this yourself. Go on to Zillow. Zillow actually is starting to estimate. These are all Zestimates. This is Zillow about future flood risk to homes. And they're talking about property values, but what I'm interested in here, this is unchecked pollution, okay, and stability of the Antarctic. And this would be the annual flooding or worse as sea level rises by 2100. You are going to lose, look at Destin, okay, where the red is, you're going to lose all of that. Where the blue is, that's all loss of land. And the unfortunate part of this is a lot of your bridge accesses are going to be gone as well, because the land is going to be underwater where you would get on a bridge. And then I don't know why you'd want to go, because there's nothing to go to. This is really bad. Now on the right is if we cut carbon, like really cut it, extreme cuts, the damage by 2100, there's still going to be damage. You can see there's still going to be damage. The lighter blue, you're going to see some of Gulf Breeze is knocked off. You can see Warrington, that whole Pensacola, they're going to have a problem with the naval base, and all of that's going to be underwater. But if we do nothing, or we don't do extreme cuts, unchecked pollution is on the left. You would lose towns. Gulf Breeze would be gone. That's it, gone. This is one thing I wanted to talk about, because the marshes are going to be overrun by the salt water. You are not going to have any protections, and we're going to have to start doing something about that. We're going to have to start thinking about resilient plans. This is one of the islands, Jean Charles, in Louisiana. It's actually the first area where they've actually had to remove everybody.
Right.
They removed them all. They couldn't stay because of the flooding, and they're going underwater. I think they were losing 1,500 feet a day to the water. So this is present sea level, and this is high water tide, and this is 1 foot, and this is 2 feet. I mean, Grand Bayou Village is gone. Forget that. The lake is no longer there. It becomes part of the ocean or, the Gulf. So this is what we're talking about when we say there's 3 levels that they're talking about. One is that you don't have, that we were able to cut the pollution and stop it or slow it down, or unchecked, what will happen. Now, sea level at particular places can be higher or lower than the global mean. And also what can happen is you actually can gain land when some other places lost land. So right now we're losing land, like say in Central America and along the Gulf and some other places, but Alaska is gaining land because it's how the water, now Alaska is starting to lose the ice, the land is starting to show up more. All right, but that's melting and it's coming down to the middle of the earth, basically.
Right.
So you've got your ice melt and you've got this adjustment, the glacier adjustment. So they're gaining land, but we're losing land because now all that melted ice is water that is coming into our area. The other problems, of course, is the ocean circulation and the density changes. We've got a lot more fresh water hitting the salt water. It's changing the chemistry of the salt water, which is affecting plants and fish, sea life. Everything's being affected. The way to get around this is by adapting and becoming resilient. So adaptation is an adjustment for our systems in anticipation of or a response to a changing environment in a way that effectively uses beneficial opportunities and reduces negative effects. The resilience part of it is the ability to anticipate, prepare for, and adapt to changing conditions. And then, of course, mitigation is applying those methods. So this is an approach to sea level adaptation. They know that the sea level is changing. They just don't know the rate of it. It's going much faster than they thought in some areas, slowing down in others. Impacts of sea level change is changing everybody's projects. If they're planning on building or doing anything near the water or coastlines, they're having to make quick changes. And the sea level scenarios are producing uncertainty in future conditions. There's triggers, thresholds, lead times, and inform adaptation that they have to be planning for in everything that they're doing when it comes to coastline. And they build frameworks. And so this is just an example. And this example is actually from the National Forest, okay, the agency. The questions are you shaping the trajectory of change? Are you looking at the possibility of changing? Are you managing the change for historical conditions or new desired conditions? And this is now when it comes to like preserving the forests, our national forests, where there are historical things, they have to worry about that. This is the way they're thinking. Now we've got scenario planning. And scenario planning is really depending on what happens. So scenarios are stories that offer a range of plausible future environments, not predictions, projections, or models, okay? And it provides a framework to support decisions under conditions that are uncertain and uncontrollable. One of these is Arcadia National Park. They were planning on making changes, and before they got a chance to do anything, this bridge fell apart. It actually wasn't part of the park. It was, I think, the county. But they had to worry about this because they couldn't get done what they needed to do because they couldn't get their equipment in because the bridge was gone. So scenarios can inform decisions on infrastructure, staffing, and ecosystem management, and emergency response plans for extreme events and engagement with community members. Now, this is another one. This was in Cape Cod. They were looking at shoring up a parking lot. And the day before they went out to do it, the parking lot fell into the ocean. It's the far left. I know it's not funny, but it's just unbelievable what's going on. This is all sea level rise. This is all sea level rise. So this is what they're talking about, like by removing barriers to shoreline mitigation and retreat. They had to move everything back. That was the plan, to move everything back. But before they could even get started on it, they lost a good portion of what they were going to be working on. So this is one in Florida. The Indian River Lagoon has river keepers, which actually are private citizens that decided to get together and try to save their river. And the local government and the federal government worked together. The state was not involved until this year. The state finally got involved during this last legislative session by now committing to giving money to this project to clean up this river. Now, what made it so bad is that they have been trucking solid waste from water treatment plants in South Florida because they couldn't dump it anymore into the Everglades. So they decided to truck it up and dump it into areas north Florida, central North Florida. And this dumping continuously of the solid waste caused huge nitrates loads in the river. And then because of climate and the heat, it caused massive algae blooms. And there is a reason why I put this in here. By the way, this kind of thing is happening all over the state of Florida. So in your area, you probably have some of this going on. I tried to do some research and wasn't able to come up with anything that I could document as well as this. This is the EPA Climate Ready Estuary process. So the government partnered with this one lagoon project and the river keepers. And they're talking EPA is prepared for climate change. And they actually have a workbook for developing risk-based adaptation plans. The whole deal here is you have to assess the risk. What do you think is going to happen at a 1-inch increase or a 5-inch increase for sea level rise, or pollution when you've got so many nitrates in the water and the heat of the water is causing major algae blooms. And then if that happens, how are you going to address it? What is your action plan? So this is all part of trying to clean up this mess. So setting the stage, they realize that this river is very long and narrow. It's shallow, which means it warms up much quicker, and it's microtidal. So some areas are deeper than others. Some are affected by tide, some aren't. It spans 2 climate zones because tropical zones are moving north. So they now have a tropical zone and semi-tropic, subtropic. The other problem is human build infrastructure is at risk. In other words, the more that you have flooding, or even in this case, pollution, it's going to affect the properties around the water. And then the biggest problem is that our population growth. We're adding 1,000 to 1,500 people per day, and we don't have the ability to really sustain that growth without making major changes. All right. One of the things is that sea level rise has gone back over a decade. So this is a map from 2009 showing present conditions, what happens with 1 meter of sea level rise, what happens with 2 meters of sea level rise. This has not changed. The estimates are pretty much the same. You have vulnerability considerations, conditions today, historic trends, and projected future conditions. So your initial focus on 5 primary stressors: warmer temperatures, changes in precipitation, increasing storminess, coastal acidification, which is that salinization, salt water moving inland, and of course, sea level rise. Your risk analysis, making initial determination of the consequence, likelihood, spatial scale, and urgency of risks are posed to the goals of the 5 climate stressors, and each risk was scored from low to high. So starting at low, your scenario evaluation is 20 inches in increased sea level by 2100 is your number 1 low. You could adjust and life will go on. Number 2, it's intermediate. They're saying 39 inches by 2100. Now you've got some problems. The impact of wildlife, the likelihood of that impact, and your time horizon, 5 to 10 years. Then you have high, which is 59 inches by 2100. It's catastrophic. It's majorly disruptive. You're having a problem now because your watershed, meaning everything that is the cycle for clean water, that is going to be impacted tremendously. And the likelihood is it's very predictable and it's already occurring, or less than 5 years it's occurring. We already know there's an impact to water in Florida. One of the things that's happening in the Indian River estuary is that from all of the algae that is being created from the climate and the pollution, they're losing the seagrass. And manatees live on seagrass. They love it. That's what they eat. And they go into the river during the winter. And this past winter, there was no seagrass. It was completely destroyed because water can't get through the polluted, light cannot get through the polluted water. And so the seagrass died. And Florida manatees are dying at a worrisome rate. They lost 541 manatees since December. And they know that they're starving, and they're blaming it loss of seagrass in the lagoon. It's algae blooms, and the federal government has gotten involved. And because of that, the state has now allocated quite a bit of money to try to help correct this problem. So what are the lessons learned? Connected leadership is essential. And that's, I think, where we get involved, all right? Before this legislative session, there was nothing talked about at the state level for resilience plans. The local governments have been doing a lot of it. And you have local groups, you have your environmental caucuses that are all kind of getting involved with trying to protect and pushing green energy and so forth and so on. Now, the office of governor and the Florida legislators have decided to get involved. They passed a law about starting up resilience divisions in the state. And they are starting to fork out some money to support some of these projects. You have chief science officer, you have the Florida Department of Environmental. And then it goes from that to Clean Water Act, and then all these other different things that are going on, where you have your policy, your implementations, your actions, and monitoring what is happening. For us, we need to start pushing legislation, joining groups that can promote things like restoring your shores, cleaning up your freshwater areas, looking to see what kind of resilience plans are being put in place. And that pretty much is the end of my presentation for today. If you're interested, you can get more information from Food and Water Watch, from Climate Reality, from the Sierra Club, Growth and Resource Management, and your local representatives. About your local representatives, we know more than they do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so we really need to be talking to these folks saying, hey, why are you allowing them to sell our fresh water when you want us to drink toilet to tap in the next 5 years? Okay. One of the other things is that I am looking for people to help with this committee at the state level for climate change. I can't do it on my own anymore. And if I'm running for office, I won't be able to do it. I need somebody to jump on and help me out. So anyone that knows of anyone that is interested in getting involved in helping to spread the word and stay up to date on what's happening, please, please have them contact me, all right? And that's it.
Thank you. That was disturbing and informative.
I always say the scariest one is this one. So eyes.
Seeing that peninsula, was it Norway that would just
Yes.
broke off and
Yeah,
that's
that's
scary.
scary.
Yeah, very.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Florida's a peninsula.
Yeah.
Mary, did you ever, was Professor James McCarthy ever part of your group?
No, I don't think so.
He, in 2000, he took groups to the North Pole. He was a professor at Harvard and he worked with Al Gore on climate change. And he came back just in a panic at how much of that cap had melted from the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 2000. But I mean, he was, I just remember how upset he was and shocked. And it's so difficult, it seems, to get people who have the power to help to listen. Matt Gaetz wants to develop more of Pensacola.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that St. Petersburg, Florida, St. Pete, Mayor Kreisman, he's terming out, but he has done so much down there. He refuses to allow building anywhere near the water. I mean, if you go into St. Pete and you go along downtown area along the bay, there's parks, there's parkland and everything, but there's no housing on the water side because they know.
Right.
And the whole southern part of Pinellas was rezoned,
Okay.
I think like 2 years ago or about 20 months or so ago. And they said that anyone that lives like in South Pinellas, like from Gulf to the Bay, they're all in like a zone that's so high that they don't even have a level anymore for it. They're grandfathering people in at the highest level on insurance, but at some point the insurance companies are not going to cover the properties anymore. And they're still putting up
Right.
your skyscrapers, which makes no sense.
But I've only been in Florida for 5 years, and I have never seen so many red flag days, double red flag days. I mean, it's and so many people who've drowned, unfortunately. But you're right. I didn't even think about warming and the current.
Everything is changing. I mean, when I moved into Pinellas, one of the reasons why I did it was because I grew up at the Jersey Shore. I wanted to stay by the beach. But we moved like a year and a half ago, and we made the decision. I had not at that time gone swimming for 2 summers in a row because of the red tide,
Oh, right.
all along Pinellas. And then they rezoned my property again. Now, I was 7 miles in from the Gulf, but they put me, when I bought the property, we were in a no flood zone. 3 years later, they rezoned me. And then they kept rezoning me every so many years. And then I finally called the insurance company and said, I thought you said after 5 years that the increase on my policy would stop. I said, and this time it doesn't say 4 more years or 3 more years. There's nothing written. She said, no, there's no cap anymore. And that's when I said to my husband, we have to get out. So I sold and I moved up to Citrus. Where I am, there's no flood zone. I'm so high up, and I think we're very safe. So this is where I am. But they're now talking at the state legislature. They talked about it this last session, that they're preparing for a migration of coastal population moving inland in Florida.
Mhm.
So they're aware that this is going to happen. That's why you're seeing an increase of roads being built and all these new, I call them cement cities going up in the middle of farmland. Because they know that people are going to start moving inland and coming north.
I think from what little I know, I understand the fossil fuel is the biggest driving force of
Yeah.
climate change. And I also understand that the oil lobby is extremely powerful, and apparently I feel helplessly hopeless in the face of all that money that buys politicians who refuse to acknowledge what you just showed us.
I think there's several changes. One is that security firms are no longer investing in oil companies. Okay? They're
Didn't know
starting
that.
to invest more in green energy because they're aware. They're aware. I
Good.
think what we're seeing from the Republican side is like their last gasp. They're worried about, I hate to bring this up, but they're worried about not having a white Republican Party anymore, that the majority is not going to be that way because it isn't, or it won't be. Give another couple of years, they're done. But the other thing is that they've always been fed by oil money.
Right.
So if you pull that plug, that's pulling a big, huge plug on their, basically their income.
Mhm.
And it's dying. If you take a look, there are certain companies now that are not looking for new oil fields. They're looking at putting in green energy. They're starting to switch.
Thank
So that is happening, but it's happening slower than we'd like, but it's happening. I think the biggest thing too is money can only buy you so much, and people, I don't care how much money you have. The vote is people vote. That's what gets them into office. That's why they're trying to do what they're doing now by undermining elections, because they know,
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
they know.
Yep.
So, things are changing and there's a backlash. It's just a matter of whether we can keep people in office that can keep pushing towards the right legislation when it comes to climate, because otherwise, I mean, it's going to be devastating for like my grandchildren.
Right.
What got me into this was I did go to the Sea Level Rise conference. And that, what happened from that was that I realized that my grandchildren were going to be the last generation that would know the beach like I knew the beach in New Jersey. That's what, it was devastating.
Yeah.
And that's what got me interested in this to begin with. So
Mhm.
I just need some like-minded people who are also interested to call me, send me emails. I've got to get people to start getting involved in this. It's very, very important. And after this last session, it's extremely important because I realize we have to get to the legislators, the Democratic legislators, before they even go into committee to talk to them about
Right.
like toilet to tap, what they're planning on doing. They want to reuse fresh water 4 times. 4 times. That means you flush the toilet, you drink it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But they're selling water to bottling
Yes.
companies. I
Right.
actually bought this. I don't know if you can see it.
No, can't see.
Hold it closer to the screen.
How's that?
There you go. A
Well,
little better.
Okay. I bought this in Publix only to find out, because I drink alkaline water. That's all the bottled water. If I drink, it's because it's alkaline. That this is being pumped out right where I live. So there's
Right.
another area they're pulling fresh water because I live on aquifers over here. They're pulling this out of a spring up in Crystal River that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And they're probably not paying for it. Florida is
Mhm.
letting them do that for free.
I
That
think
is
it's a
even
one,
worse.
it's
they
a,
buy a permit. They
Yeah.
buy a $200 permit, and then they take all our groundwater and sell it back to us in plastic bottles.
yeah,
There you
it's
go.
a 1 million gallons a day they're able to pull
Right.
out of the springs.
Yeah.
I boycott Nestle. I don't buy any more Nestle products. I'm pissed.
But it's really not Nestle. It's the legislators here.
Well, yeah, they let them.
That's right. And that's who we have to go after. So these are the things that we really need to do, because if you're bringing more people into the state, we don't have enough groundwater. You've got sea level rises pushing salt water back up into our streams. Right now, it's happening everywhere. Wakula is being affected. Chatsawitzka, which is right down the street from me, is being affected because these are, you know, you have aquifers and they've got a river going out to the Gulf. They're maybe 6, 7 miles long. They're not that long. But the salt water is starting to come up into those rivers. And the salt water is higher than the fresh water coming out. So it's
All
working
right.
its way upstream. That's, if that gets into our aquifers, we're gone. We have no fresh water whatsoever.
Meanwhile, the Colorado River apparently it takes care of 4 states' water
Yeah.
use, and it's drying up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not, I mean, this is everywhere. It's not just the United States. I mean, you have to understand it's everywhere.
I think I'm glad I'm going to die in about 15 years.
Oh my God.
Oh,
don't think
gosh.
that.
Trey. Wow. So
No.
Mary, I
Yes,
have a question for you. So would you recommend that we try to reach our legislators, I don't know, September, October this year, talk to our Democratic legislators by phone or in person?
Well,
We
they
live
don't
so
start
close to Tallahassee, we
right. They're
can
not
go
going to
there.
start committees until when? December?
No, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith said that they will start working on their bills and things in July and August.
Oh my word. I didn't think it was that
Yes.
soon.
So, you know, I know you've attended a lot of the legislative liaison meetings.
I was the climate person, the environment, so I was watching all those bills.
Right.
Okay. And
So
Patty had me going up against the reps.
Jean, I think Jean is thinking that we're going to start making contact with our Democratic legislators in September and October, because they will start having committee hearings and that sort of thing, you know, as soon as the dime drops.
Right. We need to find out what they're looking at. I mean,
Right.
last year, I mean, the whole big push last year was to push this reuse of water. And they got it done. What they wanted to do, they got done. So
Is
we
it going
really,
to come back around
I don't know.
in a different form?
Well, at the end of it, they were doing a study. So it's the study that we need to be talking about, and probably should be getting a hold of Sierra Club to see what they're doing, because they were all over this. No.
Okay.
I think part of the thing is if we join up with some other clubs and really, you know, because they only give you 1 or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever it is, to talk. So maybe if we got
Right.
together with other clubs, we could each attack the same bill, but come with it from a different angle, so we cover all the points of the bill.
Mhm.
You know, my biggest problem is that when you look at those bills, the first couple of pages don't look that bad, and then when you go down to the back of the bill, you find out that those were old bills that didn't pass from a couple of years ago, and they're horrendous. So they're getting past what they want, but it's like from a back door. Nobody reads that far down, including the legislators.
Good to know.
Democrats were not even aware what was in those bills.
Yeah. So are you going to be the climate person again on the legislative committee?
I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what we're
I know.
facing, right?
Yeah. You
It
have
just,
a lot of work to do.
well, it depends on, you know, what the chief says.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so,
Okay.
all right. I mean, it depends on how things work out too. It depends. I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm on the state board, then I don't know how much time I'm going to have to devote to all of this.
Right.
If I'm not on the state board, the answer is yes.
Monica supports you in gathering help, gathering like-minded people. So
I know.
she and I have talked about that. So I think we just have to do it. And we're closer to Tallahassee than most of the other clubs in even Central and South Florida. So
I'm not that far from Tallahassee.
I know you aren't now.
No, I was
But,
before. That was an additional
yeah.
hour and a half. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
not far.
yeah. So that's a good thing. So I just, I know that there are a lot of climate people in Northwest Florida and in our Panhandle area, and we just have to get them all moving together.
Yeah.
I think we have environmental, Kay, maybe you can speak to this. I think we have environmental caucuses in every one of our counties from Pensacola over to Bay County. So I'm not sure about Walton, but I think that they have one now.
Yeah,
You're
environment.
muted.
Hey, you're muted. Unmute yourself, love.
Oh, I was just going to say Walton is reforming, but yes, we do have quite a few groups. And if you would like to coordinate a trip to work on the legislative, we also have some very good experts in the legislation that was being pushed last year, and they know what was right about some of the bills and what was wrong about them. So we would love to work together to do something like that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And there's several people here that are also on the caucus. So
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Russ Cohn?
I'm running with Russ he's running for president of the DECF and I'm running for vice president with Russ. So yeah.
In Hillsborough or at
Yeah.
the state level?
No, at the state level.
Okay, yeah, I love Russ. Anyway, I worked with Russ last year during the legislative session. I
Oh,
was
good.
actually talking to him and he was helping connect me with some people and information because some of the bills, when I started reading them, I started freaking out. I said, this can't be right. This can't be right. So I reached out to Russ and said, can you do me a favor and just read this and tell me what you think? And he came back and he confirmed it. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So yeah, working with the environmental caucus is really good. I mean,
Yeah.
somebody like Russ, he knows what's going on. He's been doing it for years and he tracks those bills like I didn't know anybody that could track them like he does.
He has so much energy. You guys are going to love him. The ones that have been talking about him too. So
Russ is a great guy. So that's a good connection. But yeah, now it's something we have to do,
We also have Mary Gutierrez, who had her own organization, still does, called Earth Ethics over in Pensacola. And she teaches at that food co-op place. Every week there's a new program she's teaching. And I was actually thinking about her to talk to you about putting on your program in our area if you were looking for somebody to help you with that. But she's also tied in with the HR, the people that are putting through some resolutions on for the ballot next year. There's 5 resolutions to give nature legal rights. I don't know if you're aware of that whole.
I hadn't heard about that.
System. I'll email it to you and you can look it over. But a lot of us are signing the petition to get that on the ballot.
Right. I'm looking for Democratic Women Club members to actually pick up part of the committee or the committee in total.
I gotcha. I don't know if she's doing that. She's in the caucus, but I don't know if she's also DWC.
I think she is, Kay. Her name sounds familiar to me.
She might be. She's tied in. So
we can find out. Yeah.
Sure. She might have too much to do already, but I just thought of her. But we'll keep it in mind.
Right. Because I have access to climate reality decks, but the thing is, I would pull them down and then like redo them so that it's our decks. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't just give my access to somebody.
Sure.
Right.
That's the deal. I can't do that. So, but I can definitely pull down all the new information. And I'm finding like I would say probably 30%, if not 40% of this presentation, I pulled from other areas
Uh-huh.
by doing some research. And it doesn't take much to do that.
Mhm.
You know, it's very interesting. There are so many organizations now, scientific and the universities, like Rutgers and Princeton and, you know, a University of Florida. There's just all different universities where they have now climate is a big, it's part of their curriculum. So, and they're doing a lot of studies and research, and you can get a lot of information out of their databases. So I don't just stick to one thing when I'm looking to do something for people that it locally, you know, depending on what part of climate.
Well, it was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Yes.
I thought the way you
Yes, it
put it
is.
together, it
Yeah.
just showed so many aspects.
Mhm.
Thank you.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you being here today and giving
Very
us that.
scary, very, very
Yeah,
scary.
frightening.
Yes.
Well,
And
reality,
need
what a
More people need to
concept.
be frightened.
We need to be inspired, often to remember how important it is,
It
because
is important.
Absolutely.
not that we didn't know it, it's just that you need to be reminded so that it gives you more energy to get behind the
Well, you
change.
know, now we're being impacted personally all the time.
Right.
It you know, with the storms, the weather
Yeah.
changes, the patterns are different. Even planting. I used to be able to put in herbs and they would last all year round. They burn out now. They're gone. When the summer comes, it's too hot. They're gone. You can't keep
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
My hope is that the younger generation, like the Greta Thunbergs of the world, are going to be our salvation,
They
because
are.
people our age they're just so reticent about stuff and apathetic. I mean,
Yeah.
she's passionate, and those kids, can they really, I mean, I remember marching back, in the 60s for civil rights and women's rights and voters' rights and all that stuff. And I feel like this generation coming along, the ones that hit the streets for the George Floyd protests, they were younger people. I'm looking at them going, that's me 40 years ago.
Yeah, but that's the point. In between, they didn't do this.
No.
Because
Right.
I went to a couple of protests in Washington when they started the Iraq War. And I went on a bus tour that went through Florida, picked up people, and then went up to Washington to march. And I was with my friend, and I said to her, "Oh my God, we're going to be the oldest people there." We were the average age. And I was stunned. We were the average age. There were no young people there. They didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue.
No.
Well, we have to educate them.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people really don't know about climate change. They just hear it on the news, but they don't really know what's happening to our world.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I think just people have to know about it. And if they did, they would, talk to their legislators more.
Mhm.
Well, one of the biggest things is now finally they are starting to add information into our packets about how inequitable even climate affects people. Because most of the people that live near low-lying areas are low income. Most of the people that live near chemical plants that could be affected by sea level rise and destruction, they're low income. And they're going to have a harder time getting out of the way of storms unless there's legislation passed to provide for this. And that's another aspect of this whole thing that I want to start getting involved with, because I'm on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and I really want to start working on pulling some of this information into that committee. Because that
Absolutely.
is a huge problem, and it's not being addressed. It isn't. It's not being addressed. That is a big problem for climate change.
I look
Yep.
back at Katrina, and
Yes, there you go. That's the
I
answer
mean-
right there.
And it is on the list of one of the top, it's in the top 10 list of reasons for poverty.
Mhm.
And And you're right, it's just, it's devastating.
It is.
And health wise, and you're getting different plants, but you have different, you find boa constrictors now in people's yards. So, I mean, the change is, it's phenomenal.
Tremendous. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
Yeah.
do you want to present your campaign speech now or?
No, I don't even have a formal speech. I will do that. Thank you so much, Trish. I feel like this is all about me, It's- anyway, I'm taking my
Does it-
climate hat off.
Does anybody have any other questions for Mary or any comments? No, then I would say go
Well,
for it.
Have
Go
something,
for it.
okay. Well, do you
Oh.
have any information about safe water? Because I drink bottled water all the time, so.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, it depends on what you think body wise. Body wise, I don't like drinking tap water here. They may say that it's safe, but it because of the content of lime, what is it? Lime. There's so much, there's so many minerals and everything in here that people get kidney stones very easy here. And it's because of what's in the water. You know how, like, if you don't put in a water softener, what happens to your pipes? Well, it happens to your body pipes too. So no,
Limestone. Is
limestone.
that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lime, yeah. It's a problem because they can't filter it completely out. And I guess you have to have extra filters to do that. And like I said, I drink alkaline water and there's a different reason for that. It's because my body is more acidic and I'm trying to neutralize it. It actually helps to take out the inflammation in your body.
Oh,
You have to drink it continuously.
Oh,
But
sorry.
my feet were swollen all the time. And when I switched over to drinking the alkaline water, it was my chiropractor that told me maybe I should try it. The swelling in my feet went down tremendously. The minute I go off, my feet swell back up. So it
Wow.
definitely helps. What he told me was your body, you're supposed to be in balance. And my body's out of balance. It's just naturally out of balance. It's probably the way I eat. I'm Italian. So I eat a lot of acid. I mean, really, tomato sauce and garlic and, so, and I drink wine and, I have a glass of wine like once or twice a year, but,
Oh, every day.
yeah, I should because I think it's good for you. But the thing is that that's naturally what's happening to me and a lot of lemon and things like that. So to counteract it, I drink the alkaline water. But the answer is no. I think unless you have a special filters on your tap water system, I wouldn't
Yeah.
trust it. I just wouldn't.
when we lived in Illinois, we lived in downstate Bloomington, which is farm ground, and our water bill, I was shocked when we moved from Atlanta to Bloomington. It listed the nitrate level. You are not allowed to give that water to infants. And in Normal, the sister city, you couldn't use that water in fish tanks. And that was in the 80s.
Wow.
So I'm
Wow.
very cautious about water because if the state doesn't insist on listing something like nitrates, because we're drinking water from Iowa in Destin, then you don't know what you're drinking. We filter.
Let's see. A good water filter company that I use is Aquasana. They have certification from the state of California for what they remove. And they have both well water filtration and tap water filtration. And because they're certified, you can see the list of all the pollution and chemicals and everything else that it removes. But it does not remove all the solid minerals, which you don't want to fully remove, because if you're in a situation like Mary is, where you have too much of that, you might want to remove some of it. But normally that is a natural part of drinking water. And if you don't have those minerals, the water will seep minerals out of your cells to balance itself. So never drink distilled water, never drink water that hasn't, if it was completely stripped of all the minerals, then they have to put minerals back in it to make it balanced for you to drink.
Right.
But if you just have tap water and you want to use Aquasana filtration, they have lots of different varieties. You can check their certification and what it does. I think it's a great company, and it's not really
How do you
expensive.
spell it?
AQUASANA. And I don't work for the company or anything, so it's not a commercial. There's other companies
Thank
too.
you.
I just like that one.
Thank you for that information.
Sure.
Yeah.
I care about that a lot because I don't like drinking tap water either. And we don't want to be using bottled water unless we have to. And you really don't have to normally. You can take your water with you if you have a good filter at home.
Right.
So,
It's true.
All right. Mary,
They're
you're
expensive, Kay.
no, they're not that expensive. If
There's a whole house one for $1,600.
Well,
yes, well that lasts like 10 years or whatever. I use an under counter one. I still do my dishes in
Oh.
tap water. But I don't drink it. And you can even buy a shower filter so that you're not showering in tap water
Right.
either.
too, yeah.
So it's nice to have a whole home unit if you can afford it. And they do run specials a lot.
Okay.
But that's a bit much.
I guess if you sat down and figured out how much you're paying in bottled water, maybe it's not that as expensive.
Oh, it's pennies. It's pennies compared to dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, bottled
Yeah.
water is as expensive as gasoline, which is ridiculous.
It
Plus,
is.
we have to deal with the bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Oh, look at that. Well, Henny, Mary, you said that you're from Jersey
Yes.
originally?
Yeah.
I'm from Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. I grew up in Belmar, near Manasquan, Point Pleasant, Asbury Park. So the real Jersey Shore,
Okay, yeah, okay.
the fun place that has the great bars, the Jersey bars. Nothing like Jersey bars in the summertime. I don't care where you go. It is the best. They're so much fun. But yeah, that's where I grew up. I go up there as much as I can. My kids are still up there. My two daughters are up there, and I've got 3 granddaughters.
Yeah, my whole family's in Philadelphia. Well, my side, yeah, my side of the family. Yeah. So I usually go every year, but past year didn't go.
Oh, I know. I just saw my grandkids Mother's Day. I flew up for Mother's Day, and I had not seen the children. It'd been 14 or 15 months since I've seen them, and they grew so tall. Oh my gosh, they've gotten so big. It's amazing. So anyway, Trish, I want to start, okay, with my speech. As you said, I have not prepared a speech. What's happening is that I'm running for second vice president for the state board. Main responsibility is maintaining the membership list, which is 4,000 people or close to it, which is massive spreadsheet. But I can tell you that I'm used to dealing with massive spreadsheets, and my last role with doing that was this last convention for the National Federation of Women. My spreadsheets for that was to actually, no one else in the nation had a list of everybody that was coming to the convention, who was coming to the gala, all of their information, what state they were from, their email addresses, because we went virtual again for the convention, and it was very important to keep those things up to date. And it was a difficult job because in computers, you say garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good source material, you're not going to come up with a back end where it's good. And so we were chasing down people's emails and doing everything that we could. So I've worked on that convention. I helped Monica, actually introduced her to Lunch Pool last year. And we were able to put that together for the 2020 convention. We're going to be doing it for 2021 this fall. So my background in computers and IT definitely come into play with all of this. I was a project leader, so I'm used to building teams, working in a team environment, and that is also another part of the job, which is to help bring in new clubs or strengthen existing clubs. And one of the things I want to do is to try to bring in more diversity into our clubs. We don't have First Nation people. I think we have one member. I'd like to see other diverse populations that we reach out to. We need to represent what our counties look like. And so that's something that I really want to try to work on. I am not running to set policy. I am running to help assist others in setting policy, because I don't think the second VP is in that position. But I am an ideas person, and I definitely believe in playing devil's advocate. Get everybody around the table, bring up an issue, everybody throws their ideas into the middle of that table. And from that, you end up building a good consensus and coming up with an end product that's better than any one person's idea. And that's the way I work. So I'm hoping that you'll support me in this. Obviously, you know, I can talk. I have no trouble presenting or talking or doing any of that. So that's what I'm doing. And I can tell you that Deborah and I've had a few conversations, and I've worked very closely with Monica, who is running for president. I've done a lot of work with her over the last 18 months, a lot of work. And so we know that we work well together, and that's good. We definitely want to have a team that works together, can support each other and support this organization. And I have to say that after working on the National Federation organization, I have an unbelievably strong respect for Florida. Okay.
Me too.
You too.
And I didn't work on it. I just saw the end result. And and Tony was there too. And it was amazing.
It was
You
tough.
guys did great, fabulous job. And I know it was tough. I know that was really,
It was that we were able to pull it off was a miracle, I'm telling you, because it was like fighting walls the whole way.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have been like that. It should have been easy peasy. It really should have been, because we've done Lunch Pool. We know Lunch Pool, you
Yeah.
know. So I mean, it should have run really smooth, and at the end it did. Thank God. But it finally did. But except for the election part, which we had nothing to do with.
Right.
The decisions that were made outside of,
Yeah.
advice, let's put it that way. But
Mary, how many years have you been credentialing the Democratic Women's Club of Florida's conventions, though? Even before you did virtual last year, you did it a couple of years before that.
I started with Patty's term, so
2017,
yeah,
2018.
4 years. This is my 4th year coming up.
Yeah.
Credentialing, which is going through all of those sheets, and hopefully we're going to be having a training session for the presidents this time, because a lot of people I don't think understand the forms. And I talked to Patty about it. I said we need to train everybody. The forms are easy if you understand what you're reading, but I think a lot of people are not understanding those forms because you're mixing state with local. Okay.
Right.
And, you know, there's people are actually cheating themselves out of delegates on a lot of these forms, because doing the credentials is also calculating percentage of vote per club, because you've got automatically your presidents are automatic, any state board members are automatic, your region chairs and so forth and so on, state committee members are all automatic delegates. So if you qualify for 15 delegates and you've got 3 automatics, you actually have 18 people. A lot of people did not understand that. They were shorting themselves.
That's
So,
true.
yeah, it's, so that's something that I want to make sure that is getting handed over correctly. And so I asked Patty, and she said, well, we should just have a training session. I said, good. I'm used to that.
Yeah,
So,
we'll be there June 27th, I believe. Yeah. Thank you so much for your presentation today, and
you're
thank you for running.
thank you. See you
That's-
soon.
That's a thankless job, I think, taking care of membership.
But it's necessary. And if it's done right, it makes things a lot easier. If you don't have that information, that data correct, it's a nightmare when you need to do things.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's my speech.
Thank you very much. It was so informative.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Now that
Mary.
we've
Thank
kind of
you.
had your presentation and your campaign information, if we stop the recording,